Let me show you how great I can be in the memory of you. And that to me is a testament to how much I actually loved you.
That was the tip of the iceberg for me, dude, when you put that out there. Because then that's when I started a huge journey of being like, well, how can I get better? How can I figure out things? I literally just tried everything ever since, dude. And I was like, one thing I couldn't manage to figure out was, how do I be that father?
Be that person that you needed as a child.
As much as I'm growing now, I'm understanding a lot more where it's, my father never had tools at all. Yeah, you could have emotions, but those emotions are not going to do you any good unless you know how to manage them, how to process them, and how to intake them into your life.
Welcome to the VinnyRoc Podcast.
I took the blows and did it my way.
It's time. The VinnyRoc Podcast.
Welcome to the VinnyRoc Podcast. I got a good friend with me today. We're going to talk about mental health and his journey and all different things. But first, let me get to the sponsors. My first one I'm going to talk about is MGS Trade School. We've had them for a long time. They've rebranded into MGS Trade School. And essentially what they do is gunsmithing education and gun repair and maintenance fundamentals in firearms building. Okay, they are a distance learning format. So you guys have any questions, you can do this at the comfort of your own home. So use your GI Bill, use your Voc Rehab, go get certified. It is hands down one of the greatest companies I have ever worked with. So I recommend you guys go check them out. Again, MGS Trade School will give you all the information and put some links in the bio. You got Core Medical. Core Medical Group is testosterone replacement therapy. If you guys are interested in getting your blood work done, hit me up. I can get you a link so you guys can go get set up and get that done. And one thing I'd say is a lot of people forget about their significant others. Women need this too. So if your wife is saying she's not feeling the same and you are just looking for answers, I go check their hormones. So if you guys have any questions, go check out Core Medical Group. I've been with them for about 7 years. And they're just a good company. And they just started doing a lot of stuff for veterans and first responders through their nonprofit as well. So if you guys seen, I do a lot of things with them. That's why they're a good company. So check them out. Last is grimblades.com. You can find them on social media as Straight Razors. They make knives now and some really dope knives, things that I carry with me in my gear while I'm out on the border. So if you guys are interested, go check out grimblades.com. You guys won't be disappointed. Hands up. You won't be disappointed. Besides that, what's up, Mikey?
It's good, man.
I like the new studio, dude. It looks good.
Thanks.
Are you going to start putting patches up there?
Yeah, a couple of my buddies that have came on, they've just thrown up some stuff up there. So I just started putting up there. My other office is completely full of challenge coins and patches and whatnot. So it's like, I need to branch out to another part of the house.
I love it, man. Well, dude, let's talk about your military career real quick before we get into kind of the wellness side of your life and the other things you're doing. But if you can, for the audience, give them just a little bit of a kind of a rundown of your life, of what essentially your military career, and then we'll get into what happens after.
No, yeah, but for my military career, the whole reason even I decided to join the military was because I wanted to get out. I wanted to get out of the life I was living in back in Chicago, growing up there on the South Side, and like we've always talked before, it always starts when you were young. A lot of things start when you're young, similar to your story. You went into baseball and did all your stuff and then ended up joining the military. I wanted to get out because the South Side was no place for me to grow. Growing up with a family a father that wasn't very present in my life. So I did the next best thing. I let the streets take me over, developed the life of hanging out with gangbangers, exposed to a lot of gang culture on the South Side, developed my lifestyle of punk music just as a survival mechanism because I'd be getting avoided by other gang members. So decided to join the Marine Corps from there because this is actually writing in one of my books that I'm writing is I was driving home from a construction job one day watching some gang members just completely ransack some dude that was on like doing a business job, shirt and tie on his computer, freaking jumped him in the middle of a subway and took all his stuff. And I was like, man, it's no different than going to war. At least I'll get paid better. At least I thought I was going to get paid better. So then so I did the next best thing, you know, went down to my local recruiter's office and said, hey, you know, I want to sign up. How fast can I go? Literally next day took the ASVAB and then got briefed down. I actually almost didn't even make it in because during that time, when I signed up, they had a tattoo waiver for the Marine Corps. So I already was heavily tattooed as a young teenage adolescent. So they literally stripped me down, put me in PT shorts and took pictures, made me document all my tattoos to saying, hey, this is what each meaning was behind each tattoo. And me being the dumbass kid I was, half of my tattoos had zero meaning, dude. But even when I told them that, they're like, you need to put something down and it has to be profound. So that was the hard part. And I was like, nah, dude, that's like, they don't mean shit. He's like, make up some shit. And he's like, the ones that are not seen in your PT uniform, we're not going to tell them about. So fast forward, they finally accepted all my tattoos and was like, okay, don't let this ruin your career. Even though I already had some other tattoos that they didn't want to know about. Went to boot camp and I was told I was going to go home by one of the first sergeants because they literally did the medical examination with them documenting scars and everything. And they're like, dude, you're going back to Chicago. And I waited in the battalion commander's office for like, felt like forever, from like morning till even the afternoon. And they finally told me, they're like, don't let this fuck up your career. Cause I still remember the day we were sitting there from morning till evening, didn't have chow or anything. And we were just waiting. And I was sitting there with another dude that had a blacked out Confederate flag on his shoulder and a freaking few other tattoos. And he was like, he finally gave us the blessing to go, you know. And not having that kind of leadership in my life growing up, that's where I thought I would find leadership and growth in the Marine Corps. And that was a rough time for me, dude, because coming from the South Side, dude, I wasn't good with authority. So I resisted it my whole life. I fought it all the way in boot camp. You know, from there, I finally was able to get to the fleet and go through all the training. And right when I got to the fleet, I found out we were going to get deployed. So it was nothing but a work up until we deployed to Afghanistan. And there wasn't enough training in the world that could prepare me for that deployment. You know, it was just one of the shittiest deployments ever because it was right before the Battle of Marja. And from Southern Helmand Province to Kajaki District, it was just garbage, dude. It was every day just sucked. Like me and you've talked prior about, you know, it's like, I don't know if it geared myself in the head was like, hopefully today will be the day I die, you know, but that's what it was, man. I was like, it almost gave me kind of a comfort blanket and being like, oh, I'm going to come out of this dead. So at least my family gets a check and I die a hero. But, you know, you know, there was conducting operations, whether it was, you know, in a vehicle or on foot. You know, we participated in a few freaking Taliban training camp raids that we did, you know, from the border of Baram Shah. We did a joint forces operation down there. And dude, it was just really rough because the one thing I never was expected was how hard death would have hit me when I was out there. Because our first casualty of our unit was the one mentor and the one guy that I looked up to so greatly, because he actually gave me my first like lessons in life of leadership. Because the first day I went into the Marine Corps, he was the one that pulled me aside and he goes, brother, don't look at my rank. Don't pay attention to this. He goes, dude, brother, you're a man before you're a Marine. Start conducting yourself as such and you'll go far in life. And it wasn't even just like the simple things he would say. He would always pull you aside like he was your bigger brother to be and give you that guidance of like, hey dude, this is where you fucked up. So this is how you're going to fix it. You know, I'm not going to chew your ass and I'm not going to freaking scream at you, but he did this solely out of love to watch all his Marines grow and watch them succeed in life. And that's something I'll always be forever grateful. But he was our first casualty, our first KIA while we were out in Afghanistan, dude. And that shit hit me like a ton of bricks, dude. And then not even 17 days later, I still this is where it hurt me the most, was 17 days later, I was supposed to be at his doing the 21 gun salute on up in Kajaki, and I was supposed to be a part of the 21 gun salute for him when we had a little ceremony up there for him with the cross cannons for artillery, and I had to go out on a recovery mission, and that's when I got hit. And then the rest was written, dude. But I mean, if you want to dial back a little bit, you know, I was supposed to be going in as a mechanic, never really touched trucks. Ended up becoming a martial arts instructor. I was going to end up being a martial arts instructor for the Marine Corps. So, and then the rest was written was history when I got hit that day, dude. Everything was taken away. Woke up, British hospital. Freaking one thing that scared the shit out of me when I woke up was I saw a brick and mortar building, and that was the first time I seen one out in 7 months. So I thought, you know, first instinct, I'm like, am I captured, dude? Am I fucking captured? And that shit didn't hit me until I had some big British dude he's like, dude, you're good. And then like everything just became so surreal. Like you see out of like all those like movies where you wake up in the morning and you have like 10 doctors standing around you and you're just staring at them. And they're like, you know, we have, you know, Lance Corporal Horbaczewski, freaking IED blast, this, that, and the other, all listing off all your injuries. And this is where they'll give you the status of him. And I'm like, I'm right here, just laying here, but they're all briefing all the staff in the British hospital. And it was just such a freaking weird, like surreal feeling because it was so much to happen right there and then that you couldn't even comprehend it, you know? And then I literally became a guinea pig when I got back to California. So making my way back through all the chains of like from the British side, you actually got sent through the Air Force before you hit the Navy side. So you came back from the British Royal, whatever it was, they had the hospital that I was sent to, then they send you to the Air Force, and then you make it back to the Navy side of the military. And then finally, when I got back to California, I became like a test subject because head injuries and TBIs and everything like that wasn't like very studied much, or they didn't really have many treatments for it. So like I was sent to Colorado at one point to test like cognitive therapy. So I was hooked up, like, you know, you've seen in those like studies, the brain studies, you've taken psychology. So you study where they like hook up like monkeys and make them play with blocks. And dude, they did that to me. They put me in hyperbaric chambers and they literally said, none of these are treatments. They're studies to help other veterans not have to deal with this stuff. And literally that pretty much set me for the course of trying to figure out how can I get better, because something in my life, something inside of me always had, my resiliency side of me always made me want to drive to get better, to be, you know, the better father, to be the better husband, to be the better person I can always be. And I wasn't going to let anything stop that, despite that I had my falls and I fell fucking hard, dude. And that's where it took me for my military career, man. And that really set forth a lot of the precedents of my life and actually how me and you got to meet and how we actually came into play. Because I know I've sent you millions of freaking messages before about, dude, how much of an impact you made on my life, you know, and how much took me down the road, because, you know, I knew where I wanted to go, but I had zero guidance, zero freaking like help, because I always fell back on the VA. You know, I fell back on a lot of those things where I became, you know, I didn't even know why I was taking the pills from the VA, and the VA always just were like, oh, I'll just trust them, you know, trust them. And at one point where I didn't even know, I was just taking pills to take pills, didn't feel like I was a human, you know. I didn't know how to love my wife. I didn't know how to love my kids because I felt so disconnected, you know. And then of course, you know, us as egotistical veterans coming out, you know, it's like you see a guy in a shirt and tie and you're like, dude, I don't want to talk to you. What are you going to tell me about a deployment, dude? And then that was the hardest thing to do, was like, be like, you know, I think in the Light the Fuse book, which I always carry with me, you call it the Al Bundy syndrome, where it's like you throw one foot, you got 3 touchdowns in one game or whatever it is, and you ride that the rest of your life, you know. And a lot of us go through that.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of us go through that. And that was the hardest part for me, dude. And the one video dude, I was drinking myself stupid and I was taking all the pills from the VA. But one thing that you put out there I believe it was back in the day when you were still doing the, the military videos and like that was live in the memory of them.
Yeah.
And that was the one I don't know. I can't even tell you how much that affected my life because I sent you messages, but like until you reach into my damn heart and freaking actually feel that, dude, because, I wasn't living for them. I was just sabotaging myself for them. And I started living my life for them, but I had no guidance still. And that was the hardest part, dude. And then you put up a video one day about you were just having a live chat and I hit you up, dude, and me and you connected from there. And dude, the growth and freaking things has never been better, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. When I wrote Light the Fuse first, when you mentioned that part of the Al Bundy was, I saw a lot of people in the community hanging their hat on the 4 years that they served, which is great. Like, thank you for your service. But, they were done bettering themselves after those 4, because that 4 was, in their opinion, like the most important thing they've ever done. And so I got frustrated. And I used to say that Al Bundy is like, Al Bundy used to talk about how he scored 4 touchdowns in one game, but he's out there, as a shoe salesman. And the shoe salesman reference wasn't a slight towards shoe salesmen by any means, but it was just a slight towards the character of that show where, he's miserable with his life, but he continues to highlight this 4, these 3 touchdowns in one game in high school. And it's like, dude, well, why aren't you doing great things now? Like, why aren't you talking about the current situation? And too many veterans did that, where they just kind of hung their hat on these 4 years and this one deployment or this or that. And they never kind of grew from that moment. They kind of lived in the shadow of that memory. And that's what I referenced in that book. And then, I made that short film called The Long Way Back. And it was kind of a testament to, like, we kind of destroy ourselves in the memory of our loved ones or fallen. And we destroy ourselves in a way of trying to show them how much we love them by how much we create pain to ourselves. And it's wrong, right? It's the wrong way of trying to cope with the loss. And so, now it's like, well, how much can I do? I like what runs in my head is the Muhammad Ali quote, like, let me show you how great I am,
Yep.
And for me, it's like, let me show you how great I can be in the memory of you. And that to me is a testament to how much I actually loved you, is by showing you that I'm not taking this life for granted, that I'm not wasting this breath that I have. And when I was able to kind of do that for my own self, that was a big change, flip of a switch for me too.
Yeah, that was the tip of the iceberg for me, dude, when you put that out there. Because then that's when I started a huge journey of being like, well, how can I get better? How can I figure out things, But that's, like I said, I like me, you've talked too prior about this, is like, I've tried, when we bring anybody into the Light the Fuse group, and it's like, go ask Mikey, because freaking he's freaking tried it all. He's tried all these damn different things. And I was one of the first guys to start doing the TRT stuff. Because I got, in San Francisco, I got hooked up with the guy that did the study for it, And I've been on it since then, dude. I think my levels when I got tested was 120.
Damn.
It was bad,
mine was
dude.
very similar. Mine was very similar.
And then I literally just tried everything ever since, dude. And I was like, one thing I couldn't manage to figure out was, how do I be that better father to my children? And that's when me and you've talked, and you're like, you share stories about, like your interactions with your kids and how they conduct themselves out in public, and, to carry themselves in a certain manner. And it's like, I need to learn from this guy on so many damn levels, dude. And dude, and the thing is, he's like, I know you'll be humble about everything and say, I'm not perfect, bro. I'm not perfect. You ask my kids that question, you probably think I'm an ass or whatever. But dude, it's like, you had so much knowledge from that I didn't have. And I'm like, dude, I need to know what this guy knows. So it's helped me grow.
No, you're right. I guess I should see it as in, like, there's not everyone who's been able to, I guess any information from my life could be beneficial to others who don't have that same guidance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's every day I'm learning something new. My son Holden, right?
Yep.
He hits me up the other day and was just like, Dad, we're leaving, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, there's a girl that likes me. And I was like, oh, okay. He goes, should I start a relationship? I was like, and I was starting to talk to him about like, just, you don't want to hurt nobody,
Yeah.
no false promises, just be friends and we'll see what it turns into, right? The world is different these days of like, you can stay in contact, but just kind of giving him the truth of like, here's the situation. But, I'm very honored to have a relationship with him where I can have that conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like me and my dad never had the balls to say nothing to my dad about a girl. He'd be like, are you gay? And I'm like, no. He goes, good. And that's it. That was the depth of that relationship.
Dude, but you created that environment for him to have that. And through the things that me and you've talked about, I was able to recreate that kind of environment for my kids. Because there was this one thing I heard that I want to say it was Mel Robbins put out there. And she was talking about traumatic incident from a family vacation where, she had some issues with another male or whatever when she was younger. And she goes into the detail about how it affected her. And the one doctor was like, well, tell me what you were feeling in that moment, and she relays that she was scared, she was, she didn't know how to react. She was, felt vulnerable, scared, and helpless. And he goes to her and says, I'm not saying that wasn't a traumatic incident. That wasn't a traumatic incident. I'm telling you that the trauma started before that. The trauma started before that because you didn't feel like you could have gone to somebody and told them that. You didn't have that safe, loving feeling that you were protected by your parents, that you could have created that environment that you can go to them and tell them what you're feeling and what happened, where your parents would be like, I understand you're hurt. I feel like that you've been attacked and I feel like that you can't overcome, you feel like helpless right now because you can't overcome this in the moment, and help them process it, dude. And I'm like, and I look back at everything that me and you've talked about, everything we talked about on our calls, dude. And it's like, man, dude, I look at my kids. I'm like, my kids will tell me everything, and my daughter's friends will say that too. They're like, you tell your dad a lot, and I'm like, good.
Well, it's funny you say that. One of the calls we had was be that person that you needed as a child.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and that's exactly what you're saying. It's like, I there's nothing, and I'm not blaming my dad at all. My dad's badass, but I was intimidated to ask questions,
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm just as intimidating to my kids, but they definitely have the comfort knowing they can ask me the weirdest shit in the world and I'll give them an answer. I'll give them the best answer I possibly can provide. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's about being uncomfortable together, going through navigating these things together and be like, well, if I don't have the answer, we'll figure it out together. You don't have to walk this world alone, dude. And then you go back to when you're talking about your dad, it's like, as much as I'm growing now, I'm understanding a lot more where it's my father never had tools at all. Like he had zero tools growing up. And I was like, because his mentality, he was a war baby, his parents were product of World War II. So It's like their mentality was he's breathing, he's alive, he's good, dude. So
survive.
It was good. So as long as he's breathing, he's good, and it's like, he never had these tools. And we've talked about being the cycle breakers and everything like that. It's like, we're the ones learning his tools.
Well, it's interesting. There's a what I've noticed more recently. It's the call last night. Those of you guys who are listening and don't know about the Light Diffuse calls, we do them every Tuesday night. But there's been a build up to this call we had last night, and a lot of emotions, like conversations that just led to emotions. It wasn't like intentional. And yesterday was a pivot for me. Just so you saw that, Mike. I kind of pivoted, like, all right, done with this. We've soaked in our sorrows long enough. Now it's time to take actions forward. And I think there's a balance in too much. I would say there's too much reminiscing on the hardships and not enough active movement towards the goals, or what Carl Munger likes to say is the objective, right?
Sure.
An actionable item that we try to accomplish, whether that be healing, whether that be advancing in life, becoming better. And I think there's a space there in the men's mental health that we have to kind of find the happy medium. Not easy, right? Like it's not easy, but too much emotions leads to like very weak and very victimization, mentality. And that's dangerous, right? To be too much like, oh, woe is me. So there's a balance of like, hey, let me acknowledge that this happened. And I can sit in these emotions for a minute, but then I have to be like, okay, well, how do I heal from that? And then how do I heal from that so well that I can put that aside and say, that was a learning moment. I'm a better man from that. And then how do I go and continue to kick ass in life, right? Like that's where the group is right now, is in like, all right, we've sat in our sorrows long enough. We close enough to being like, we victimize ourselves enough, but we didn't. We just kind of accept like, okay, this happened. Now what's next? Like, how do I move forward? How do I gain ground? And then when we went over our goal, I was shocked, bro. Like, wait, everyone's doing their thing. You know what I mean? Most guys are actually taking action on these items that we started off in the beginning of the year.
Oh yeah.
So, I just think there's a balance there that has to be met, because look at social media, look at all the, the mainstream, effort. There's a lot of people saying men should have emotions. Like, yeah, absolutely. But also, in that is you can't just sit in your emotions all day. You have to, you have to have actionable items that improve your life, and not just sit there and saying, accepting my life is shit. Right. Like, my life.
That goes to the emotional intelligence or the emotional sobriety. When we talked about that, it's, you could have emotions, but those emotions are not going to do you any good unless you know how to manage them, how to process them, and how to intake them into your life, and apply them. Because we all can go through all those emotions of being angry, sad, happy, lust, everything. But it's what you do with them is what's going to really matter in life. It's how you apply them to your life and how you handle them. Because we've never were trained to handle these emotions. It goes without saying, the suck it up, be a man, but being a stronger man is when you know how to process them, know how to handle the situation. I can't remember who said that, the one where it was like, yelling is a weakness. Where yelling is a weakness because it's your last defense, because you don't know how to properly handle the situation. And it was like, it's like, damn, dude, you're right. Because it's almost like our version of throwing a temper tantrum is screaming at somebody to get the job done.
That's probably another Marcus Aurelius fucking brilliant quote.
Right.
But, it's funny, man. The whole thing of like, stop crying, that, we were raised on. I'm going to step on a ledge here, but I think part of that is legit, right? Like I look at my 5-year-old son, and there's a version of him that cries because he's hurt. And I'm like, yo, let me go grab him. Let me console him. Let me make sure he knows he's good. Dad's there. And then there's another side of him that uses tears as a form of manipulation, and not like, not malice or anything, but just a kid trying to get away with things. Right. And that is a form of a little bit of, a little bit of spoiled that, we've created in him, right? By giving him things, right? Whatever. So then there's an area of that is like when he cries, just out of knowing he's going to cry and get tears and mom's probably going to kind of, fold. That's the side of like, no, dude, we don't cry because you want something. You cry because you're hurt. That's one thing. Got it. Your feelings hurt. Understood. But you don't cry to try and manipulate me in anything. And I don't tell him that way, but I'm like, this is not a cry moment, is what I tell him. That's it.
I mean, you're right. You're right, dude. You're right.
Yeah. No, bro. This ain't a cry moment. This is you're trying to get away with something that you don't get. This is a spoiled moment, is what it is.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
But there's a cry moment where, man, that's a good moment to cry. Like that's valid. Then there's the moment of like, don't try and use tears to get an emotional effect out of me, because it's not going to work. I don't.
He knows how to work mama.
Right. Oh yeah. That's how brilliant they are. But they try and work everybody. They try and work dad over too. And I'm not built that way. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't feel bad.
No.
I don't feel bad. I feel bad when you get hurt. I feel bad when there's, when Holden lost his grandfather, on his mother's side, I felt bad for him. And I said, yeah, man, please, like, don't feel bad about having tears, man. Allow yourself to feel that because it sucks, but like, then to get caught in doing something like bad grades, I'm like, these aren't crying moments. You know what I mean? This is like accountability moment. Own that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Holden's a great freaking kid, dude. He's a great freaking kid, dude. I had the honor to lead him for the teen retreat, the teen portion of like the Fuse thing, dude. And freaking, that was some of the coolest moments ever, dude. I still remember the day when I was out there, we were rocking it out there, and he was, helping out with Rescue Randy, carrying him up there. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like watching him take lead, I'm watching him freaking step up, do this stuff. And I'm like, and I had to keep my composure still, dude, where I'm like, we're being tough motherfuckers out here, dude. We're doing this. And it's like, I'm like, proud daddy moment for Vince watching him do this stuff, dude. I came back and I had to tell you about that. I'm like, dude, man, you've been so proud of this kid, dude.
You raise your kids and hope that they can step up in these stressful scenarios. And Holden's had his run of just completely being a kid and doing knucklehead things and, the lying, the all the dumb things, dude. And, we give him grace in it, but as well as there's a lot of lessons learned in our house, and I've said it before in the podcast is what I do with him a lot is this punishment or improvement. And so when he gets in trouble, it comes down to, you're going to read this book, you're going to read this book, you're going to do these errands, whatever the case, right? And, you're losing amenities like TV and video games. And, he'll get mad at times and he's like, nah, bro, no video games. Go sit down and read your book. He gets mad. It's like, is this punishment or improvement? Like, am I am I taking out the whip and spanking you? You know what I mean? No. Right. Yeah. I'm asking you to improve as a man. I'm asking you to get better by reading a book that has challenges in it, that the character in it is facing adversities, real or fiction, doesn't matter to me. But I give him these certain books that I think have he can see point of view from someone else's hardships and hopefully learn some kind of, emotional intelligence, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And that's how we do it here, man. And, outside of him being in front of me, I can see what he does in his actions. But when he's at school or he's somewhere else, you never know what version you're going to get. Is he going to say, is he a dog out of the kennel and be like, hey, do all crazy shit or not? And so that weekend of the teen retreat, to hear him do some wild stuff, it feels good. I'm still dead where I'm like, thank God he did it this time. Hopefully, I'm always nervous. Like, don't fucking do it. I say like, don't dig a hole too deep that I can't get you out of it. Yep. And, for the most part, he's been doing good.
No, he was a great kid, dude. He was a great person, a great kid to work with, man. I mean, he freaking stepped up, did what he needed to do, took charge, And that's the thing. It's funny because everybody's kid that I knew, I was able to tell everybody's kid apart because I was like, man, I could see their dads in you, dude. Like from the little mannerisms, the things they say, and I'm like, dude, this is great. This is the funniest thing and the funnest thing ever, dude. To watch him grow over that weekend.
He was lucky because one of his best friends was there, Caleb, and that's Banks's son.
Yeah,
and Caleb's a sharp kid too, but he, obviously raised a little different. He's a sweet kid and everything, and those two do really well together. So it's pretty cool to see them be able to do that together. We need to do more of those, actually.
It was amazing to watch them grow and work as one at the end of the retreat.
Leadership, man.
Dude, it was beautiful though. It was like a beautiful thing because like they took charge, they stepped up, even when they got turned around or they thought they were done and they had to keep going. And it was like, man, reality check, dude. It was such a great thing to see, dude. And it's like one question for you, really. How do you feel helping all these people heal?
Part of my personal growth.
It's healing through helping, brother.
I know. It's just part of my personal growth has been to give back and serve others. I get messages that I've helped this or that, even just hearing, your story and stuff. Does it feel good? Absolutely. I think I still don't know how to take that compliment. Cause I don't necessarily do it because I need to feel good about it. I do it because I really think it's what we should do as humans. But so when I get compliments about it or someone says, man, you changed my life, I don't think I still have fully digested how to receive that information.
I can tell that, dude. I can tell that. It's like just another, you're like, dude, you're just coming along with the ride. You're just taking us all with you, bro. That's it.
I'm just trying to do good for me. And at the same time, I try to give the information of what I've learned. And if in my life and in my experiences, the residual effect is other people learning and being able to be cool. I'm still searching too. Like it's a constant search. That's the one-man show that I just wrote. And I'm fine tuning really is me explaining my own, I guess, struggle with trying to find, I would say trying to find comfort in my own skin or like stop the chase, if you will, but like hard to explain. I think that's what I fight. I fight with myself on this chase of trying to be the best version. But when does that stop? And is the chase to be a better person, is it going to go on forever? And will I ever be content and comfortable in my own situation? Dude. I don't think I will.
And that's why you need to go that's why you need to go try out the hypnosis thing, dude.
I'm scared, dude. What if it changes me, dude? What if it changes me in a bad way?
All right.
Tell me about hypnosis. All right. Tell me about hypnosis.
So this past weekend, I was on a part of a group called Leadership for Life. And I went for the leadership class that we were taking out in San Antonio. And I met up with one of the doctors that was there. She started talking to me about hypnosis and stuff. And I'm like, only thing I've seen about hypnosis was from the movies. So it was like, dig up your past from when you're 7 years old and relive traumas and stuff like that. And she goes, no, why would I make someone relive traumas over again and have them experience that over again? She goes, if we can store if those files are already stored in your head, why can't we store new files for you to not feel the same way?
Damn, this Inception and shit, bro.
Dude, and I was like, okay. So that's where she hooked me, because I was like, I don't want to have to because part of like some of the treatments that I've been through was like, tell me how you felt during this blast. Tell me how you felt during this altercation, and I'm like, you want me to recall the stuff? And it was just really intense and it hurt, and I was like, I didn't want to. So I just left the treatment center. But she's like, well, why aren't we going to relive this? Let's give you things that you can experience and overcome them so your body doesn't react the same way to it. And she put me through a brief session. I couldn't tell you how long it was, but when I came out of it, she was like, it was 35 minutes. And I've been through psychedelics. I've been through a bunch of other, we did the combo, the hape, all these other treatments that are very spiritual and uplifting. And I'm just laying down on the ground, dude. And she's talking, white noise machine comes on and she does her magic, dude. And she'll tell you to write a number below the number. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I've heard this before, because we've all been through, the guided meditation, breathing techniques where it's like, it just feels good. But I never had it to the point where I'm freaking visualizing shit, dude. I saw my freaking younger self draw on a chalkboard the numbers that she was telling me to draw. And I'm like, it was like freaking 4K definition in my fucking eye. I could touch it. And then it was like, one thing that it was telling you would tell you to come in and out. You're coming in and out of it. And then all of a sudden I start seeing different colors, waves of blue and purple. And then it tells you to go down a hallway, and you don't know what the hallway is. So it's whatever your subconscious is going to put into a hallway of your vision. So it's mine was a big marble hallway, and I'm walking down this hallway, and then you approach a staircase, and it's nice. Mine was a freaking wraparound staircase. And then it almost where a Fight Club, where it tells you to bring you to your happy place and your cave or whatever to avoid it. It was walk down those steps, and then it brings you to your happy place and it pulls out of your subconscious where the place that you felt the most peace. And I kind of already knew where it would have been because I was the happiest I ever was when we went to Outer Banks and I was on the beach, walking in the early morning with the waves coming in, and I see my feet in the sand. But one thing I wasn't ready for, what was to come next, was I'm just taking steps in the sand, and then I look up, and there's my wife is with her freaking, like, her wedding dress when we got our vows renewal. And I was like, dude, that fucking cut me deep. Like, I couldn't hold it in anymore, dude. And that was like such a freaking like moment where I told her, I was like, dude, I had to call her up like right after that. And I was like, I can't believe what just happened. I saw this, and it's like, just pulled out like the best moment of my life in there. And then it was like, then they bring you out of it. And dude, I swear I felt like I drank 10 Red Bulls after I got out of it, because it was such a freaking profound thing. And then to get it even further, she goes and tells me that's level 1. It goes 5 levels deeper. And I'm like, dude, I was like, cause she's seen the videos that about the retreats and stuff. And she's like, absolutely love it. And one of the people I want to have her get hooked up to with is, Carl Monger.
Yeah.
To get hooked up with him too. Is because, dude, she's all into wellness, and she's a New Yorker. So she has the mindset of like all the special forces dudes, the Marines, freaking everybody, dude. So she can roll with the best, and she has a lot of great stories, and she's a good person, dude. I mean, I couldn't believe the profound effects it had, though, dude.
Yeah, that's crazy. That sounds cool, dude. So now you believe in it,
dude. I'm a believer, brother. There's nothing else to say, man. Like, I used to be like, oh yeah, I don't, the wishy-washy thing where it's like, oh, come here and we'll make you quit smoking, and all this stuff. But dude, it was insane. And she goes, the more resilient you are, the more hard-headed you are, the easier it is to work with, and the more susceptible you are to it. So I'm like thinking, why isn't this being brought to like all the veterans that need it? Because there's not many veterans that are not very hard-headed or freaking resilient.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
And I mean, dude, and it's just like, it just works. I can't explain it. It's one of those things where you just trust the process, and just go with it, dude. I mean, I was at a point where I was open-minded, and I'm like, let's go. What's the worst that can happen?
I got to try that. Well, dude, let me ask you real quick. So I know we're coming down on time. Talk to me about the book that you're working on.
All right. Which book? The one with me and you?
Yeah. What's the one you're working on for you?
The one I'm personally working on is going to be where the book that me and you are working on together is going to pick up. So it's about leadership in a young adolescent life. So, and how important it is to have that guidance and be the freaking navigator for their life. Because without that, dude, without seeing because we've seen many men grow up without leaders and mentors in their life. And all of us have just walked astray. We've completely just walked the world, aimlessly, just hoping that we'd find our path, and it's going to be coming from where my story, it picks up and where it's going to leave off, because having a leader, having that mentor, having that guide in your life is so important, and not to just belittle it when you were younger. Cause dude, that's one thing that I resent so much as my childhood is I looked at people that had great relationships with their fathers. I had looked at, great relationships in their family. And I was like, whatever, that's your life. I'm going to hang out with the, misery loves company. So I'm going to hang out with that kind of thing. So I want to bridge that gap to the point to those young men, to let them know that there's hope. You need to know that to find someone, even if it is not your own father, to find someone, whether it's a coach, whether it's a friend's dad, to be able to reach out to and learn from them. Because the minute you're ignorant as a child and you don't want to learn, and I want to be able to stop that in its tracks, to reach out to those younger generation, to be like, you know what, reach out to somebody and learn from them and have these tools in your hand. And by putting some of the tools that I've learned over the years, I'm hoping that, somebody's, even if I get one kid to read it and helps that one kid, dude, I'm I know it is worth it, because that's all I ever needed in life was that one person to reach their hand out and was like, pull me aside and was like, hey, brother, this is where I notice you're messing up stuff. And this is a simple fix. Because to them, it's not a simple fix, dude. To them, that's the only thing they know, and that's the end of the world. Because if I never had that sergeant in the Marine Corps freaking pull me aside and was like, hey, brother, you know, this is what you're doing wrong. This is what we need to fix. This is how you do it. Because, you know, he wasn't the sergeant that you freaking were afraid of getting your ass chewed just for solely getting like messed with or fucked up. You never want to let him down because he never let you down, dude. And that was simple as you know, he gave you the guidance, he gave you the structure, he gave you the love that you really truly deserved in life to help you grow, you know. And I believe, you know, that's, as crazy as it is, I believe that's where you were picking up in life, where he left off, was leadership equals love, man.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I fucking love the mentality. I love the saying. It hits really close to home for me. You know, and having that structure as a child. I mean, I look at your kid, dude, and despite you'll fight me every day on this, but I look at your kid and see the values that were instilled in him, you know, and it's like, man, I'm like, we're good. I'm good. I'm doing good. I'm going down the same path of, you know, as long as I miss the mark of where I do better than my childhood, I'm good, dude. So, you know, that's pretty much where the book's going to be taking the guidance from, you know.
I love it. Dude, thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being on here with me. Tell the audience where they can find you, and as well as about your podcast.
They can find me on Instagram with Life Unlocked with Mikey. Same with YouTube and Spotify. So I've got my podcast going, thanks to Vinny, because wants to push me into doing it. He's like, why don't you just do this, dude? Because, you know, he's like, you're good at this shit. So let's go. You know, you help me with writing too. Help me with all those modalities. That's like 3 other shows you could put on from that, dude. I'm just saying, dude.
Well, I appreciate it, bro. It's really you doing the work, man. I'm just here to guide, man.
Yeah, but if I didn't have the guidance, I'd be stuck, you know?
I appreciate it, bro.
Definitely be stuck, dude.
Mike. It's been fun to watch. It's been cool to watch.
Thanks, brother.
Absolutely,
I appreciate the guidance, man.
Absolutely.
Even though you won't say thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just saying, I know, I get it, brother. I'm bad at compliments too, man.
Appreciate you, man. Have a good day.
Thanks, brother.